All right, welcome to Start Writing. I'm Joe Bondowski. Today I have an interview with J.T. Lawerance. She started in traditional publishing in 2011, but because of her cover and some other dynamics, she really just had a hard time selling the book initially. And so she continued to write and apply to various traditional publishers to get books, and no one was picking up any of her later books except for that first one. At which point she then heard a podcast by Joanna Penn that made her decide to go indie. So she started publishing her own books indie, and they started to do really well with her marketing plan. At which point she then went back, bought the rights to her very first book, redid the cover, redid the marketing, and it shot up to #1 on the UK charts for 9 months. So she will talk about a lot of great marketing tips in here. She'll talk about building your email funnel. She talks about where she gets subscribers for her list. And she talks about how to market an audiobook and some of the research she has done there. This week in critiques, I actually came across this. This is from Jim Butcher's The Furies of Calderon. And I enjoy Jim's work and I read a lot of his books. But there was this one point here, and this almost belongs in a grammar episode, and we may do one on that eventually. But I did want to point it out here, just because it really stood out to me. Okay, so here is the paragraph. Adalric flicked his weapon to one side, and the droplets of blood, of his uncle's blood, splattered against the stones of the battlements. And here is the issue that I want to bring up. That is a single paragraph. The problem is that it's not Adalric's uncle. It's Tavi's uncle that it's referring to. And so the chapter is written from Tavi's POV. And the only person ever referred to by uncle in the whole book is Tavi's uncle. So you know immediately the reference to uncle is a reference to Tavi's uncle. But the his is not referring to Tavi in that paragraph the way a pronoun back references a previous subject. It's referring it to Adalric. And so that's the point there. And so the interesting dynamic here is that the POV character's perspective is bleeding into a paragraph that belongs to Adalric. Adalric is the actor in that paragraph. And so referring to uncle then is trying to refer to his uncle, who is not even on the battlefield or even in the book. And so that's what I wanted to point there. Like I said, it's more of a grammar complex issue, but I read that just a few days ago, and I thought I would bring it up here. As far as a marketing minute goes, I'm actually just going to let J.T. Lawerance do that because her marketing advice is so good and so sound. I actually learned quite a bit from her. So we will save that for her. After the interview, she sent me a couple chapters of her book, and I will tack that on to the end. Why don't you start off by talking about maybe your most popular book? Since you write in a lot of genres, what's your most popular book, and what's like a household name you would compare it to, or even just your general writing style, just so they get a feel for how you write, how you tell stories? Who's a big household name you'd compare yourself to?
I'd say that my most popular series, or at least my most well-known series, is my dystopian thriller. And I'd say it's mostly compared to Margaret Atwood, Hugh Howey. I say it my most popular, but it actually doesn't make me as much money as my urban fantasy, which seems to be a hungrier market at the moment.
Huh.
Yeah,
That's
interesting. Yeah.
So why did you pick the dystopian one if your bigger earner is the urban fantasy? Do you like that one more? You feel it's a stronger story?
I've always loved dystopia. I really, really love the genre. I love writing it. So it's a bit of a project more for love than for money. But I'll definitely revisit the urban fantasy because, I mean, I can just see it's just less work to sell. And I mean, anything that is less work to sell means more time to write.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely revisit that next year. But for now, I'm busy on my dystopian series and I'm loving it.
So that's interesting. I think I met you in the 20 books to 50K group.
Yes.
And I know somebody put up a post in there a week or so ago about writers not recognizing what their best work is, and it was talking about the
Yes.
author of Christopher Robin's, and that's what I thought of
Yeah.
just now, because you're like, my dystopian, that's my great work, and then you're like, but my urban fantasy sells like crazy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I read something very recently, an article about how authors are the worst judge of their work. Who did they reference? But one of them was Stephen King throwing away his like bestseller ever, and someone else saying,
Oh, really?
"If anyone ever reads this book, I'm finished. My career is finished," and that was a bestseller. And so really, I think we are the worst judges of our work. But at the same time, a lot of the writing I do is for myself and not for the market. So it doesn't actually matter at the end of the day what sells better. I mean, of course it does. But
if you want to be full time, it matters.
Exactly. Yeah, and I do want to be full time. So I'm almost there. So I do have to take the market into consideration. I do care what my readers want and what and the work of mine that they enjoy. So that is very important to me. But I thought, let me just finish this series. I mean, it's 3 books, might be 5, but at the moment it's 3. Let me finish it, and then I will concentrate on more market related books.
Right. Okay. So talk to me about genre hopping and how that affects.
That's a bad idea.
Well, how does that affect like your newsletter and your fans, and how does that impact them? Because
it's a terrible idea.
Except for the writers I absolutely love, I tend not to follow them as they shift genres.
Yes, I'm the opposite. If I fall in love with an author, I will read everything by them. My latest crush is Michel Faber. I don't know if you've read anything by him.
I haven't heard of him, no.
He writes sci-fi. He's written historical fiction. I never read historical fiction, but he wrote something and I was there as soon as it was out. I bought it, and really, I'll read anything that guy writes. I'm a big fangirl. And, Kate Atkinson and Margaret Atwood, it doesn't actually matter what genre they write. They're brilliant, and I'll always read their books. So, I mean, I wish that my readers felt that way, but, it really is a good idea to stick to one genre. I just find that it's not for me, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. So when you send out your newsletters, do your fans care when you shift genres? Or are they still picking up the book when you let them know?
They are quite engaged, luckily. And I mean, one of the reasons I'm focusing on my dystopian series is because most of the subscribers I have on board are on board because of the first book in the series. So I think my mailing list does lean towards sci-fi, dystopia, apocalyptic kind of thing. That said, when I brought out Grey Magic, which was my urban fantasy, they did seem to pick it up. So, I was very lucky there, I think.
Oh, good.
But it really does complicate things, and it's not ideal. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone.
That's funny. So let's talk a little bit about craft. What do you think is the strongest part of your writing? And kind of on the flip side, what do you think it is your readers enjoy most about your writing?
The strongest part of my writing, I think, is maybe my voice. I hear other writers, or should I say emerging writers, wonder, how do you find your voice? What is a voice? And I've never really battled with that. Like, I've always, since the beginning, people have said, yeah, that's a JT Lawrence story. Like, they just can recognize it. So I think I've been quite lucky there. So I'd probably say that's the strongest, just because it's effortless for me, and it just kind of seems to work without me putting much energy into it.
Okay. Well, I guess, is there any techniques or anything you would recommend to writers in developing their own voices?
That's the thing. Like, I've never put any energy into it. I've never had to try. So I don't actually have advice for that. I may have advice on other things, but they just came naturally to me. So it's difficult for me to be able to tell other people how to do it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, what's a part of your writing that hasn't come naturally? Something you've had to really work at and developed, and how did you go about that?
My weakest point, definitely in writing, is tenses. I'm terrible at tenses, and
Tenses?
Yes. And, luckily it's something that a good editor can just fix. So it's not really a problem at the end of the day. But I love writing. I love writing in the present tense, and it drives some readers crazy, and it drives some editors crazy. And it's almost like I can't write in the past tense anymore, because as soon as I started writing in present tense, I loved it so much that I haven't written any other way for 2 years. So I'm worried about going back to past tense, to be honest.
That's interesting. How do you feel about reading present tense?
I don't mind it at all. I think I actually ironically prefer past tense. I don't know why. I can't tell you why, but I know it doesn't make any sense, but I love the immediacy of present tense. I love being able to tell you exactly then what the character's thinking and feeling, instead of relaying the story to it's right there in front of you. I love that.
Interesting. So does your editor just convert everything to past tense, or are you publishing in present tense? No,
I'm actually publishing in present tense, and it seems to be working okay. I mean, I've had I think one review out of maybe 150 on the first book in the dystopian series saying, I can't stand it when authors write in present tense. It's awful. They think it works, but it doesn't. Oh, and then, so I just had to disregard that, because.
Well, but I mean, like that person should have never reviewed the book. I mean,
exactly.
You look at the sample and be like, oh, it's in present tense. I don't like present tense. I move on. Like
Emerson has a look inside for a reason.
Yeah, like you can see if the book's written in present tense. If you don't like it, you don't need to pick it up.
Exactly. And she read the whole book, and then that's what she had to say about it. But you can't please everyone. That's what I've learned.
Yeah, you cannot please everyone. So what I've learned with my own reviews is, if I find somebody who is my target market, they love my book. But
yes,
earlier versions of the book, my cover was miscommunicating my genre. And so people, they thought it was okay, but they didn't love it. And I was like, it's not the book. You're the wrong reader. You're not supposed to read this book.
Yes, it's such an important thing to get that cover right for your genre. Yeah. It's so important. And I mean, I've had the same thing with some of my books, and I've definitely changed covers and that kind of thing.
So I guess what was your story cover like? How did you figure out you had the wrong cover, and how did you end up with that cover in the first place?
Well, the very first book I published, it was actually through an indie press. I didn't self-publish it. It was that experimental psychological thriller with dark humor. And the cover didn't work at all for so many reasons, but it certainly wasn't a psychological thriller cover. And it was also, they say about Kindle covers, they have to have 4 or 5 things. It has to be, the most important thing is it must be genre specific, the most important thing. Second thing, it must have contrast. Third thing is must have complementary colors if possible. Fourth thing, it must have a promise, the promise of the story. And the fifth thing is some kind of human element. And that book cover didn't have any of those, not one thing. So no wonder it didn't do well with the press. But then I took it over and started learning about self-publishing, and we've kind of got it right now. So I'm much happier with that.
So did you tell them to redo the cover, or did your rights expire? You took the book back and self-published it?
That's exactly what happened. I took the rights back and self-published it, yeah.
So, and fixed it, and now it works.
Yeah. And I mean, they did absolutely nothing with it, which is a shame, because they were such nice people, and they tried hard, I think, but they just didn't have the knowledge that's out there now. I mean, the self-publishing community is so fantastic, and they're willing to share everything. And, that's why I know so much, because of Joanna Penn and Mark Dawson and all those guys. That's the reason I got the cover right, and that's why it's doing well.
So good. Okay. What's something that drives you crazy in fiction? You're reading a story, so what's an element of craft or story or structure, and when you read it, it just drives you nuts?
I curate my reading very, very carefully, because I've limited time. So I honestly don't read things that make me crazy. Most of the stuff I read is like top-notch quality. But the thing I have noticed lately is there's a lot of exposition in really fantastic books, and it surprises me because, you try so hard to not have too much exposition in your own work. I'm busy reading 1984 at the moment, actually. And it's such a fantastic book. And of course, I'd recommend it to everyone. But there are some pages and pages of exposition. And, my editor would never stand for that. Absolutely not. Not in today's day and age, And quite a few books that I've read lately, actually, like they're gone for a few pages. And especially in the beginning, like you can't afford so much exposition in the beginning, but they do it, and their books are bestsellers. So what do I know?
So, well, I actually just finished. You're familiar with? I can never remember the pen name, and think it's like Robert Galbraith. It's J.K. Rowling. She runs under a pen name. Yeah. So I just finished Career of Evil, and I noticed a lot of exposition in the book as well. But one, it was not front loaded. I was 10, 15 chapters in. But there'd be 3 pages of exposition. And I remember reading the work of, I think it's Lisa Crone is her name. And one of the things she talks about is she says, there's a blanket rule that writers should not do exposition. And she says, but if you look at what's selling well, it says exposition is not a problem. She says, it's a problem if it's too early, and it's a problem if it's not engaging.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that.
So, and so I was thinking that about a lot as I was going through J.K. Rowling's book, and I was like, there's a lot of exposition in here, but it always works. Like half the time, the exposition was almost more interesting than the story was.
Yes. No, I mean, I think that is certainly sometimes the case. And if you have nothing but plots and that force driving that story forward, I mean, it's great, but the reader does need to just, sit back and relax and enjoy a little bit of exposition sometimes, surely. I'm going to tell my editor that the next time.
Well, not only that, but I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with the TV show Orange is the New Black.
Yes.
But a lot of times what they'll do is a character episode. Yes. Yeah, and a flashback like that, that's almost an entire episode that lets us understand the character, understand their motivations, we connect to them more. That's all technically exposition in the literature world, but it's structured in a way that it's engaging, and then once it's done, we understand the character far better and we connect to them a lot more.
Absolutely.
So
then the rule should not be no exposition. It should be meaningful exposition that is entertaining.
Yeah, and I think exactly. It needs to be meaningful and entertaining. I mean, because I think you need to give this blanket rule to the beginning writers, because I know what it's like to read the manuscript, the first first thing, and they're like, and it half of it reads like a textbook on how their little fictional world is functioning. And be like, that's not entertaining exposition.
Yes, exactly.
So I think it's a definitely complicated issue. And I think that rule kind of evolved from amateurs, just throwing out their textbooks. But
yes. Well, there's so many rules that are great at the root of it. They're great, but really, when as you say, when you look at what's selling and what the really great writers are doing, they don't always listen to those rules.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things we talk about a lot on our podcast is that, a good writer knows the rules and follows them, and a great writer breaks them intentionally.
Fantastic. But as long as you know the rules to begin with, then you can break them properly.
Yeah. You need to know what they are and why they're there, and then you can break them on purpose. Like we probably talked about this tons of time, but I love to talk about it because it's fascinating to me. It's like adverbs. They tell you blanketly, don't use adverbs. They're terrible. Yes. Right? Just find
I think Stephen King was famous for that. He's like, do not ever, I don't want to see one adverb in your book.
So, but if you look at J.K. Rowling, she uses adverbs like crazy. She loves them.
Does she? I haven't noticed that.
Yeah, but if you watch how she uses an adverb, it's amazing. It's amazing, right? She doesn't, there's no touching gently, but like one of my favorite was deliciously normal. I was like, oh my word. Like, because that's not an adverb.
It's an adverb.
Yeah. Like that's like, it doesn't just nudge the meaning of the word. It completely changes how you understand normal to be.
Absolutely.
So it's just fantastic. Anyway. Okay. So talk to me. You're almost going full time. I know when I first contacted you, you had a book that was shooting up to the top of the charts on Amazon. You were doing really well. So talk to me how it all started. Like, how did you first build the email list, and how did you first get your books to start selling? I know that's a lot of the problems that writers encounter is, you write this book, you put it out there, and then you just can't get it visible.
Yes. So as I said, my first book was taken up by an indie press, and it didn't do anything. And I kind of thought that I kind of just forgot about that book. And then I wrote another one, and I tried to go down the traditional publishing route. South Africa is very conservative when it comes to indie publishing. They kind of see self-publishing as vanity publishing. So, I mean, I did too, to be honest. I was a bit of a snob way. And then very slowly I started thinking that I could do a better job with that indie press title, that wasn't selling. So that's, I started thinking about that. And then I had these other books that I just couldn't get a traditional publisher to pick up. And then I listened to, and then I published Why You Were Taken, which is the first book in my dystopian thriller series. And a few people liked it, and I got some reviews, and I'm talking about mostly South Africans now. I've got a few book bloggers, got some good reviews, and that really encouraged me. I thought, oh, okay, then maybe this is a route that I could follow. But still, it didn't really do anything. I mean, I think, I was earning hardly anything, and I was still trying to get picked up by a traditional publisher. And I ended up writing, I think 3 other books that were sitting in a drawer, waiting. And I just got so sick of the submission merry-go-round. It's drained my energy. And I listened to a podcast, the first podcast of the creative pen, Joanna Penn. And
the first episode.
And I was like, wow, this I could really do something like this. And I just found that even the idea of indie publishing gave me such creative energy. Like, I became so productive. I just started writing more, and I put out those 3 books that were in my drawer. And I just, honestly, indie publishing changed my life, because as soon as I realized, oh, you can actually make a living from this, it's just like the last 18 months has been crazy. I've been writing and publishing and doing book covers and marketing, and it's just been such a thrill ride for me. It's been fantastic.
So what do you do for marketing? What's working for you?
I followed the Mark Dawson strategy, which is mailing list, and I try and get as many subscribers as possible, and I have an automated funnel that works quite well for me. I tried Facebook advertising for a while, and while I did get sign-ups, it hasn't been good for sales, so I've stopped that for a little while. But what really has worked for me is ad stacking. For every launch I've done a hell of a lot of ad stacking. I've tried to get a BookBub, and because I'm in Kindle Select, I think that's probably one of the reasons I haven't been successful. But I thought if I would spend $500 on a BookBub promo, then maybe I can take that $500 and just book up a whole lot of ads and see how that does. And that's been pretty successful. I've been able to get, I think, every single book I've published into the bestseller lists on Amazon.
Great. Okay. So what is I guess, if you don't mind sharing the details, what is the funnel you've set up, and how is it working? Because I think a lot of writers would want to know how to get a submission funnel working for their lists.
That was one of my biggest questions, and why I did Mark Dawson's SPF 101 course, because he promised that he would show exactly how he does his funnel. So that's the main reason I signed up for that course, actually. And it was very helpful in other ways too. But I basically copied his funnel, which is, I think, 6 emails. The first one says, hi, here's my free book, because, of course, it's the reader magnet strategy.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So the first email is, hi, here's your free book. I hope you enjoy it. The second email is, I think, 3 days later, and it says, just making sure that you've got your free book. Third one, I think a week or 2 later, is please leave a review if you enjoyed your book.
Right.
And then the fourth one is, I think that's when you start trying to sell them a little bit. Then you start saying, hi, I wonder if you're looking for something to read, here's my Amazon author page. I write in this genre and this genre, and you kind of introduce yourself. Only then introduce yourself and your books, and make it a bit more personal.
Right.
And then after that, I can't remember what the fifth and the sixth emails are. I think it's just kind of like a follow-up, like a more personal thing. Oh yes, well my one is it's like a 21. It's a life hack: 21 ways to find more ways to read. And it's like a humorous kind of, almost like a blog post, like try this, and if they do end up reading that, then they'll get an idea of who I am and my sense of humor, and if they like that, then maybe they'll like my books, and
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of how it works.
So, okay, yeah, what is it? I think not Nick Stevens, Brian Cohen was talking about how for him, I think 5 and 6 is kind of trying to get them to read new books, but also inviting them to his beta reader team.
Of course. Sorry. Yes, that's very important. That's like halfway through my funnel. I say, would you like to join my advanced reader team? That's very important.
So how many people join the advanced reader team? Because these are people you're not going to sell books to. They get a copy for free to be a beta reader and an early reviewer, right?
Yes. I've got 400 on my advanced team at the moment.
Jeez, holy cow! That's huge.
Most of them are reviewers, and some of them are beta readers. I think I've only got about 20 beta readers, and the rest are reviewers.
Okay, so how do you get people to the funnel in the first place? How do you find them to get them that first email for their free book?
A few different ways. The most successful way recently has been Insta Freebie. I mean, it's been fantastic. I understand that they are flooding the market a bit with free books, and that is a problem. But it's been fantastic for me. I mean, I think I doubled and trebled my email list within a few months with them. They featured me. They featured, I think, 2 of my books in the last 8 months. They've been really fantastic. I love those guys. And that is how I've had most people join my mailing list. Before that, I did some Facebook advertising for lead generation, kind of, it's like you put up your free book, basically your reader magnet. You say, if you'd like this free book, sign up now. And I got a few signups through Facebook like that. Those actually paid off that Facebook advertising, the ad fee. So that was quite good. I should start that again. I kind of stopped that when I started Instafree because it was working so well, but I should go back to that because I think it was probably a higher quality subscriber.
Cool. Great.
Then of course I also I had a perma-free book on Amazon, and inside the perma-free book was the freebie offering. It's that's Nick Stevenson's strategy. And
so you have a perma-free book that offers a free book if they sign up?
Yes.
That's 2 free books. That's heavy.
I know, but it works very well. I
guess if you've got a big list, that works. But
well, it's a great way to get signups because, I mean, I did that with my. The book that was with the Indie Press that I got the rights back for, I put a great cover on it.
Right.
So then I put that, I thought I wasn't making money on this book anyway, so I'm just going to make it perma-free and put the reader magnets inside. And it did so well. It was like on the, in the UK store, it was at #1 in dark comedy for 9 months. Do you know how many downloads that is? It's amazing. And every single download is like a free ad. Well, not everyone even opens their free books once they've got them, but for the people who did open those books, there's my ad right there, and it says, there's a free book if you sign up. And then that's the first book in my series. So
that is your advertising budget, the free book. Exactly, that's the advertising budget.
Exactly. So that worked really, really well.
So what happened? Why did it fall out? If it was, it seemed like it was going strong for so long.
I decided to put that back on, that book's called The Memory of Water, and I decided to see what it does as a paid book to see how well it does, because it did so well. I thought, let me put it as a paid book, and then I can make some money and still maybe get some signups because the reader magnet's still inside there. And it's done quite well. I haven't promoted it all, but I need to start getting on that. I've just actually released the audiobook, and that's doing quite well. So that might boost sales. I'm kind of experimenting. I'm lucky because I'm not full-time, so I can still experiment quite a lot. And, you know, if I have a bad week, it's really not the end of the world. I can still
Right.
feed my kids. So it's a good time to experiment.
I see what you're saying. That's kind of a good point. Like if you experiment and it doesn't go well, it's okay. That's not how you pay the bills.
Exactly.
So basically covers what I want to go over. Is there anything you want to bring up or mention? I know I sent you these questions several months ago. So
I don't really have anything on the top of my head.
Okay. Well, why don't you tell us
Unless you'd
where...
like to...
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, unless you'd like to ask me about audiobooks, because I've just been on quite a steep learning curve, and I'm happy to...
Oh, yeah. We actually just did a whole series on audiobooks. We did a discussion piece.
Okay.
We interviewed 2 voiceover actors. So why don't you talk
great.
to us about your audiobook experience and what you learned and what writers should know going into the process?
So what I've learned about audiobook marketing is that the most important thing is reviews as early as possible. So what you need to do is, as soon as your book goes live, if you are going through ACX, you email support at ACX and you get those codes immediately, and you ask for 25.com and 25 UK codes, and then you distribute them as well and as quickly as you can to get those early ratings and reviews, because it's very important with those audiobook algorithms. And then there are different ways to distribute the codes. I don't know if you're interested in hearing about that.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Because my audiobook comes out, well, we've finished it, we've approved it, and we're waiting for ACX to give us the final approval. And that's the stage that I'm at. So
And did you do the whole thing through ACX?
Yeah, the whole thing through ACX.
Okay, great. Yeah. So as soon as it goes live, you ask for those codes, right? Then you get paid for, so basically a code is a coupon for the listener to download your book for free so they can leave a review.
Right.
So you get those coupons as soon as you can, and then you distribute to as many people as you can that you know will leave a review. So friends, family, book clubs, that kind of thing. But a very effective tool is called Audiobook Boom. And they call it like the BookBub for audiobooks, but it's not really a promotion tool. It's more about distributing those codes to the right kind of people. The guy belongs to the 20K group, 20 books to 50K group. And he's a great guy, and he sends out a newsletter every Tuesday, I think it is. And you pay a nominal amount. I think it's $10. It's really nothing. And then he basically advertises the book for you, and then people can email you and ask you for those codes. So it's really a great way to get your book out there.
Good to know. Thank you. So I have a question. So you said you mentioned dollars, and it sounds like you do a lot of work in, like, ACX is usually a US and Canada only company. Are you not dealing in Rand? Have you switched over?
I've switched over. No, I'm kidding. No, I think so much in dollars nowadays because like basically everything I do is in dollars. I spend dollars and I earn dollars. So, and I love it because, our exchange rates isn't great.
Yeah, like the dollar's powerful in South Africa.
Yeah, exactly. So, which is great for me. It means I can go full time a lot quicker than I think the average American. I'm very lucky.
Yeah, I guess that's true. One of the advantages there, because you get paid in dollars.
I get paid in dollars, and I use South African editors.
That's kind of brilliant. I'm going to look for a South African editor.
Well, I've got some great ones if you would like some recommendations.
Yeah, you'll have to email me those. That's a good idea. Look for countries where my currency is powerful.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, great. Yeah, so why don't you tell us where we can find you and your work? And if I'm not mistaken, you do have an audio clip for us for the end of the show here.
Oh, yes, I do. The audio clip is from Why You're Taken, which is the first book in my dystopian thriller series. And you can find my books on Amazon. I've got an Amazon author page. My author name is J.T. Lawerance. I've also got a website, jtlawerance.com, but really all you need to know is on that Amazon author page.
So, Yeah, well, I think that's kind of the standard model because Amazon is so powerful. Be like, I have a page, buy it on Amazon. Don't buy it from me, buy it from Amazon.
Yeah, exactly.
I need the algorithms.
Exactly. Don't even go to my website. Why would you? Just go straight to Amazon.
Yeah,
They've got your
just
credit card details. Go there.
exactly. You don't need to put anything in. All right, that's great. Okay, well, thank you for your time. This was great. I actually learned a lot about marketing. You had some great points there. So
I'm so glad.
All right, thanks for listening. As always, if you enjoy the show, leave a review. You can sign up for our email list on the site Joseph-Bendosky. That's B as in boy, Endoski. On the mailing list, we will send out a link to the books of the authors we've interviewed this month. So if you just keep forgetting to get around to checking out their books, the link will be there. Also, my audiobook is coming out in sometime this month, as soon as I hear back from Audacity, and we'll be looking for reviews. If you are committed to doing a full listen and review of the book, we will try and get you some of those codes as they send those out to us as well. And so just email in, and I'll put you on the list, and we'll let you know as soon as that gets out. And as always, thanks for listening.
Chapter 1. Bride in the Bath. Johannesburg, 2021. A well-built man in grimy blue overalls waits outside the front door of a Mr. Edward Blanco, number 28, Rosebank Heights. He's on a short stepladder and is pretending to fix the corridor ceiling light, the bulb of which he unscrewed the day before, causing the old lady at the end of the passage to call general maintenance, the number which he has temporarily diverted to himself. He would smirk, but he takes himself too seriously. People in his occupation are often thought of having little brain-to-brawn ratio, but in his case, it isn't true. You have to be clever to survive in this game, to stay out of the crim colonies. Clever and vigilant, he thinks, as he hears someone climbing the stairs behind him and holds an impotent screwdriver up to an already tightened screw. The unseen person doesn't stop at his landing, but keeps ascending. The man in overalls lowers his screwdriver and listens. He's waiting for Mr. Blanco to run his evening bath. If he doesn't start it during the next few minutes, he'll have to leave and find another reason to visit the building. He has already been here for 20 minutes. And even the pocket granny would know that you don't need more than half an hour to fix a broken light. At 5 minutes left, he checks the light bulb again and fastens the fitting around it, dusts it with an exhalation, folds up his ladder. As he closes his dinged metal toolbox, he hears the movement of water flowing through the pipes in the ceiling. He uses a wireless device in his pocket to momentarily scramble the access card entrance mechanism on the door. It is as simple as the red light changing to green. A muted click, and he silently opens the door at 28, enters, and closes it behind him. In the entrance hall of Blanco's flat, he eases off his workman boots, strips off his overalls to reveal his sleeker outfit of a tight black shirt and belted black pants. The burn scar on his right arm is now visible. The skin is mottled, shiny. He no longer notices it. It is as much a part of him as his eyes or his nose. Perhaps subconsciously, it is his constant reminder as to why he does what he does. Perhaps not. He stands in his black stockinged feet, biding his time until he hears the taps being turned off. Mr. Blanco is half whistling, half humming. A small man, effeminate. What is that song? So familiar. Something from the 1990s? No. A bit later than that. Melancholy. A perfect choice, really, for how his evening will turn out. He hears the not-quite splashing of the man lowering himself into the bath. Tentative. Is the water too hot or too cold? Or perhaps it's the colour of the water putting him off. Recycled water has a murkiness to it, a suspiciousness. Who knows where that water has been, what it has seen? The public service announcements now planted everywhere urge you to shower instead of bath to save water. It does seem like the cleaner option. If you do insist on bathing, they preach, you don't need more than 5 fingers. And then, only every second day. His nose wrinkles slightly at that. He takes his cleanliness very seriously. Mr. Blanco settles in and starts humming again. The man with the burnt arm glides over the parquet flooring and enters the bathroom. Even though his eyes are shut, the man in the bath senses his presence and starts, his face stamped with confusion. The scarred man sweeps Blanco up by his ankles in a graceful one-armed movement, causing water to rush up his nose and into his mouth. As he chokes and writhes upside down, the man gently holds his head under the water with his free hand. It's a technique he learnt from watching a rerun on the Crime Channel. In the early 1900s, a grey-eyed George Joseph Smith, dressed in colourful bow ties and hands flashing with gold rings, married and killed at least 3 women for their life insurance. He would prowl promenades in the evenings, looking for lonely spinsters and pounce at any sign of vulnerability. His charisma, likened to a magnetic field, ensured the women would do as he told them. One of his wives even buying the bath in which she was to be murdered. His technique in killing them was cold-blooded, clean. He'd grip their ankles to pull their bodies under, submerge them so swiftly that they would lose consciousness immediately, and they would never show a bruise. But where such care had been taken in the actual murders, Smith was careless with originality, and was caught and hanged before he could kill another bride in the bath. A moment is all it takes, and soon Mr. Blanco is reclining in the bath again, slack-jawed, and just a little paler than before. The man in black turns on the taps and fills the tub. Turns out 5 fingers is enough in which to drown, but it would be better if it looks like an accident or suicide. Mr. Blanco's face is a porcelain mask, an ivory island in the milky grey water. Perhaps the person who finds him will think he fell asleep in the bath, which he has, in a way. He washes his hands in the basin, wipes down the room. He throws on the white collared shirt he brought with him, and within 5 minutes he is out of the building and walking to the bus station, dumping the dummy toolbox and overalls on the way. He manages to hop on a bus just as it's pulling out onto the road. He's in a good mood, but he doesn't show it. This was one of his easier jobs. He wonders if the other 6 names on the list will be as effortless. He slides his hand into his pocket and pulls out the curiosity he lifted from Blanco's mantelpiece. A worn piece of ivory. A finger-polished piano key. Engraved on the underside, "Love you always, my Blinky Plonky." It's smooth in his palm and retains the warmth of his skin. A melody enters his head. Coldplay. That's what Blanco was humming. The man finds this very satisfying. Chapter 2. Rainbow Vom. Johannesburg, 2021. Kirsten, late for the appointment she's been dreading for weeks, taps her sneakers on the scuffed concrete of the communal taxi stop on Oxford Road. The taxis are supposed to collect passengers every 15 minutes, but the drivers don't pay much attention to the official timetable. Most of them are passive-aggressive, which, Kirsten thinks, is better than just plain aggressive, which they were in the old days. Taxi bosses, South Africa's own mafia, used to gun down their rivals, blood in the streets, as if our history doesn't have enough of that already. They stay with her, the pictures. She doesn't know if it's part of her synesthesia or if she just has a more visual memory than most. It comes in handy with her job as a photographer. The exception, of course, is her early childhood, of which she can remember very little. It was before you could download and back up your memories. Her parents used to tell her what she was like when she was a child, describe her first word, her first steps, the outings they had been on. But Kirsten's early memory remains an odorless, flavourless blank. One year, for their anniversary, Marmalade James gave her the first book she had ever read cover to cover. A hardbound, beautifully illustrated, vintage edition of a Grimm's fairy tale, Hansel and Gretel. The pages are foxed, the cover bumped. When she holds it, she can feel that the book contains more than one story. She was so touched by the gesture, as if he's trying to give her a small part of those early years back. She treasures the book, reads it carefully, is appalled by it, falls in love with it, can't bear to read it again, still dreams of toaster waffle tiles. Kirsten's watch beeps with a reminder just as a minibus rolls up. She's supposed to be at the clinic already. She double-clicks the message and it dials through to the reception machine, letting them know she's running late. People are more flexible now that personal cars are practically extinct and almost everyone relies on public transport. At least, that's what Kirsten hopes, seeing as she's terminally late. The irony of her period being precisely on time every month is never lost on her. She lets a few passengers push in front of her in the queue so that she's last to board and gets a seat in the front row. She hates sitting at the back. All the smells, the perfume, the aftershave, and shampoo, and worn pleather shoes, and smudge, and acha, and chewing gum. All the sounds, the tinny kwaito, jazz, retro marabi on the radio, the different languages and dialects, the shades of skin, the mad hooting. The close fabric of different textures and colours makes her giddy, sometimes ill. Overwhelming, like having to see, smell, touch and taste all the colours of the rainbow in 3D at the same time. At its worst, it mixes together to become a thick, soupy, smelly, bubbling, multicoloured mess. Normally, she closes her eyes, pictures herself in a clean white room, and tries to cut herself off from her senses. But fellow passengers never like that. They either take offence or move a little away from her, afraid, perhaps rightly so, that she will hurl on them. Rainbow vom, she thinks, and smiles, although the idea doesn't make the trip any easier. With her locket cam, she takes a quick snap of the miniature disco ball hanging off the taxi's rearview mirror, which swings as they stop to pick up passengers. The driver makes a dangerous stop at a dogleg to offer a woman a ride. Probably because she's pretty, Kirsten thinks, till the door opens and she sees the woman's bulging stomach. Christ, as if this morning isn't difficult enough. The other passengers all snap to and make the appropriate noises. Not gasps, not quite, but something similar. They shift up in their seats, making space for her, dusting invisible crumbs off the cheap, cracked upholstery seat. The pregnant woman smiles shyly, thanks them in vernacular. The people on either side of her beam as she sits, and steal shy glances at her bump. The woman smiles, puts her hand on her belly. A special kind of smug, the way only pregnant women can be. Kirsten stares out of the hair-oiled smeared window. The infertility crisis has hit the lower socio-economic groups the hardest, with 9 out of 10 couples battling to conceive. As the salaries climb, though, the infertility, bizarrely, decreases, with top earners having the reversed fortune. Declining fertility rates are a problem the world over, but nowhere is it as dire as in South Africa. No one knows the definitive reasons behind the crisis. Billions have been spent on testing the various hypotheses. Cell tower radiation, tile and/or patch use, hormones used in farming and agriculture, high stress levels, bad diets, GMO, people waiting too long to start their families. While there is some correlation, they still can't figure out why South Africa is so badly affected compared to other countries. The population is declining rapidly, and those fortunate few who do manage to conceive are treated like queens. When they draw near to where she's going, Kirsten lets the driver know by shoving 100 rand at him. They're supposed to use government tokens to pay for community taxis, but drivers always appreciate cash, old school style. She doesn't do this for the sake of the driver, but more as a small act of rebellion against the incumbent ruling party, the new ANC, known regrettably as the Nancies, because the idea of a nanny state makes the hair on the back of her neck stand up. She jumps off onto the pavement, glad to put distance between herself and the bun in the oven. Digital street posters call her name and tell her to wait. They have a message for her. "Kirsten," a recorded voice says in an American accent. "Have you done something for yourself today?" Bilken knows her favorite ice cream flavor, rose petal, and showers her with 4D rose petals and a blast of cool air. A travel agency tells her that it's been 206 days since her last holiday. Doesn't she need another one? Bolivia? Mozambique? The Cape Republic? The soundtrack is vaguely island style, and she can smell rum and coconut. Has she considered a travel batical? Workation? Tuk-tuks zoom past her, hooting as they go. The sky darkens. Kirsten shields her eyes and looks up to see a drone swarm fly overhead. She doesn't like them. Doesn't like the shadow they cast. Hates that they have cameras, as if she's living in someone else's bleak futuristic imaginings. Already she feels as if she's being watched. Always has. She shakes her brain, tries to focus on the task ahead. The time has come. Carpe diem and all of that. For as long as she can remember, she has always hated doctors and hospitals. But doesn't everyone? She abhors it when someone says they hate hospitals. That's like saying you hate stepping in dog shit or wetting your pants in public. Obvious. Or in local slang, obvious. The stating of which usually just shows how little you know. Yuck. I'm just grouchy, nervous. Her underarms are damp, so she slows her pace and thinks about the ice cream, the piña colada. Besides, how can she say she hates doctors when she's practically married to one? Just one example of how conflicted, read crap, her personality is. Anyway, Marmalade is different. He's a pediatric cardiologist and goes around fixing kids' hearts like some kind of golden-haired, scalpel-bearing angel. It's not like he has ever been her doctor. Never going to happen. No, not even then. In vitro looms before her. It's bigger than she expected. The pictures on the website made it look less intimidating. The architecture's beautiful, inspired by Petrie. The disc-shaped building is built out of attenuated glass, crystal whisper, strangely transparent and reflective at the same time, as if the architect meant for it to look invisible. Kirsten wipes her clammy hands on her jeans, wonders if she really wants to go ahead with this. All the electronic poster projectors near her apartment have been advertising this place. It seems to be the best of the hundreds of fertility clinics around. The spam bots hack your online social status, and as soon as they see you are in a relationship, they bombard you with wedding messages. As if anyone gets married anymore. After a while, they give up on you getting married and start with the fertility and baby spiel, a bit like parents. Or, Kirsten sniffs, how parents used to be. Her pain is still jagged. 2 heavily armed guards stand at the entrance. They look more like American militants than security. Top-of-the-range automatic rifles, Kevlar skin, tortoise-shell-shaped helmets that make them sweat. They don't take their eyes off the pedestrians walking past. Seeing-eye cameras swivel in Kirsten's direction and blink at her. A bit further in, a lesser-armed female guard scans Kirsten for anything suspicious, then points where to go. The reception area of in vitro is plush but anemic, decorated in the kind of soulless way a 5-star hotel is. The walls are covered in vanilla wallpaper that feels flat, dry, and tastes sweet like a wafer. Kirsten hears the whisper of air sanitizer as she approaches the empty smiles at the desk. The waiting room is packed. This place must be printing money. A woman, camouflaged in beige, hands her a stylus and a glass tablet with a form to fill out. She looks for an empty seat in the crowded room. Mainly couples, some scrubbed-looking and hopeful, some carrying the stale air of defeat, a few pinkly embarrassed, although Kirsten sees no reason to be. As difficult as it is, it's generally accepted that everyone in South Africa is IUPO nowadays, infertile until proven otherwise. At least Kirsten and the other people in the room have the money for treatment. Most aren't that lucky, hence the huge skew in the latest population stats. Some of the patients are wearing superbug masks. Kirsten supposes she should be wearing hers too, but reckons she has to draw a line somewhere. If she has to choose between wearing a mask over her face every day for the rest of her life or getting sick, she'd rather take her chances with the bug. Besides, the government-issue masks are revolting to look at. Perhaps if she can get hold of one of the designer masks, She's about to sit next to a resigned-looking pair when her name is called. The gold nameplate on the half-ajar door is blank. The nurse knocks and they enter. Now or never. Kirsten takes a deep breath. The doctor takes the electronic clipboard, dismisses the nurse, and looks with interest at Kirsten over the top of his black-rimmed glasses. Miss Lovell? His eyes are the palest blue. Quinine. Arctic ice caps. They drill through her, make her feel intensely uncomfortable. I'm Dr. van der Heever. Kirsten's nerves stretch her smile wide. She feels like running. He motions for her to take a seat and ignores her for the next 2 minutes while he scans her form, pinching and paging. She focuses on her breathing and casts her eyes around. One side of the office is floor-to-ceiling glass with an uninspiring view of China City, Santon. Glinting certificates take up most of the opposite wall. What kind of specialist feels the need to wallpaper half of his office with certificates? What's he trying to make up for? So, you've been trying for around 3 years? Kirsten jumps to attention. 3 years, yes. He grunts acknowledgement, keeps paging. You have children? She blurts, without really meaning to. She thinks he'll say no, that he's married to his job. There are no framed prints of family on his desk. He looks up at her, stares, moistens his lips. I do. A boy. Well, he used to be a boy. A grown man now. A doctor. Yuck. You must be proud. He blinks at her, his eyes magnified by his glasses. Your family's medical history. It's patchy. I'm working on getting more information. No matter, he says. We'll do the standard primary diagnostic tests on you and your partner. The mention of tests socked Kirsten in the stomach. It's true, she doesn't have many memories of her early childhood, but what she does remember is having endless examinations. Specialist after specialist. X-rays, MRIs, CAT scans, blood tests. Breathing in gas to trace the blood flow to her brain. A hot flush of an iodine IV to examine her renal system. It had made her hate her condition. Only once she'd been free of the weekly appointments did she finally start to accept the way she is, regarded as a gift instead of a disability. Now it seems as if it's starting all over again, and she is heavy with foreboding. What kind of tests? Kirsten tries to keep her voice even. Nothing too invasive for now. Bloods, HSG, PCT, then maybe a laparoscopy, hysteroscopy, depending on what we find. Using a stylus, he writes something on the glass, then clicks a button to bump the prescription to her watch. Her wrist buzzes as it comes through, a spray of tiny blue polka dots. It's a prenatal supplement, folic acid, DHEA, pycnogenol, royal jelly, omegas. Dr. van der Heever stands up as if to see her out. Is that it? 9,000 rand sure doesn't buy you much specialist. Don't look so worried, he says with a sidelong glance, one Kirsten can't help but to find menacing. We'll take good care of you.